So we about to go into everything that was in Jimi Hendrix's will when he died.
I like to be educated, but I'm so frustrated.
Hey guys, welcome back to Music Mindset Channel. I haven't seen you in a minute. How y'all doing? You still with me? I'm still with you on the Music Mindset Channel. Well, tonight we're going to get into an incredible story, man. I mean, some of you may have heard of it, but I guarantee you haven't heard the deep part of it. Jimi Hendrix, when he died, what was in his will? That is some stuff for a television movie, but we're about to get into it. Now, if you hang around to the end, you're going to learn some stuff that you didn't know. I guarantee you that. So check this out. Now imagine this. You change the whole world. Your name becomes legendary. Your talent is untouchable. And then you die. Not in some scandalous, dramatic way, but in a tragic, avoidable accident.
The Jimi Hendrix experience is over. The acid rock musician died today in a London hospital, apparently from an overdose of drugs.
But what happens next? That's where things get messy. Because the moment your body isn't even cold, the people around you start fighting over your money. And not just a little money, millions. And the worst part, the wrong person wins.
Welcome, Janie.
Thank you.
Now this is that unbelievable story of Jimi Hendrix's last will and testament. Or rather, the fact that he didn't have one at all. It's a story about how one of the greatest musicians of all time made one of the worst legal mistakes imaginable. And believe me, he paid for it. Or rather, his family did. The disaster no one saw coming. It's September 18, 1970. Jimi Hendrix is in London. He's 27 years old, at the peak of his career, with the entire world at his feet. And then suddenly, he's gone. A tragic overdose. The kind of rock star ending that would later become cliche. But what happened after his death was anything but typical. Jimi Hendrix, the genius, the icon, the man who played guitar like it was an extension of his soul, never took 5 minutes to write down what should happen to everything that he owned. I mean, no will, no instructions, no legal clarity, just a massive fortune waiting to explode into one of the biggest family feuds in music history. So who got what?
I call it the cosmic promise because, he said, you don't have to worry about anything. I'll always take care of you.
Well, since Jimi had no will, the law took over. And the law is not based on emotion, nor does it care about relationships, loyalty, or what Jimi might have possibly wanted. The law does one thing. It follows the paperwork. And because there was no paperwork, everything defaulted to Jimi's father, Al Hendrix. Not his bandmates, not his friends, not his current girlfriend Monica Danneman, and not his little brother Leon Hendrix. Nope, just his father, Al.
My father ended up being the sole heir, and so it was left to my father to determine what went where. And, that's really, it was about him.
Now, the sad, crazy, and unfortunate thing is that Al Hendrix had never been particularly involved in Jimi's life. He stood on the sidelines while Jimi did what he did. I'm saying their relationship was complicated at best, but legally, he was the next of kin, and that meant he got everything. Jimi's music rights, his estate, his fortune. And then, when Al Hendrix passed away in 2002, guess what happened? He left it all to his adopted stepdaughter, Janie Hendrix. Not Leon, not the person Jimi had actually grown up with, the brother who had been there through it all. No, Janie got everything. Man, that can't be cool. It looks like Janie was born in 1961 and Jimi passed away in 1970. According to her, she was just 9 years old at the time of his death. Jimi's primary residence was in London, while Janie and her mother lived in the U.S. This geographical distance meant that Janie never even lived with Jimi or had the chance to form a close personal bond with him. In fact, she was so young when he passed away that any relationship that they had was likely limited to brief family interactions, not deep and meaningful connections. This raises questions about how well Janie truly knew Jimi, especially considering she wasn't even a teenager when he died. But unfortunately, that's the law up there, and that would be the outcome. Leon Hendrix fights back. Leon didn't take this lying down. He sued, arguing that Jimi would have wanted him to have a share of his estate. But here's the problem with that argument. What Jimi would have wanted didn't even matter in this situation, because if it is not in writing, it doesn't even exist. The court doesn't guess. The court doesn't read minds. The court follows the law, and the law said that Janie was in charge. Old Leon lost every single lawsuit. He got nothing. Meanwhile, Janie took full control of Jimi's music, his brand, and his legacy. She started selling Jimi Hendrix merchandise, re-releasing his music, and controlling every single thing associated with his name. Oh, but let's keep it real, because you know she wasn't that smart on her own. It was the handlers, the lawyers and stuff. And Leon, he struggled with this outcome. He tried to keep Jimi's spirit alive in his own way, playing music and telling stories about his brother, but financially, he was locked out of the empire that he believed should have been his. I know you're wondering, why did Jimi's estate go to just his father alone? Well, here's where things get really interesting. Most people assume that when someone dies without a will, their money automatically gets split among their closest family members, parents, siblings, maybe even nieces and nephews, right? Wrong. The law follows something called intestate succession, which is just a fancy way of saying who gets what when someone dies without a will. And in Jimi Hendrix's case, the law worked against his brother Leon. You see, Jimi's mother, Lucille, had passed away years earlier. So according to Washington state law, where Jimi was a legal resident, everything he owned automatically went to his father, Al Hendrix. That's because parents come before siblings in inheritance laws. Yeah, that's right. Leon didn't even get a chance to claim a penny because as long as a parent is alive, siblings get nothing under Washington's intestate laws. So even though Leon was Jimi's closest living blood relative besides the dad, he had no legal right to anything in this state. And once Al got control of the estate, he had the power to do whatever he wanted with it, including cutting Leon out completely when he later rewrote his own will. That's nasty, bro. So the real reason Leon didn't inherit? The law never gave him a chance. It wasn't personal. It wasn't even a mistake. It was just how the system worked. The hard lesson here. Now, you might be thinking, man, that's cold. And yeah, it is. But this happens all the time. People assume they inherit money just because they're family. They assume the law will recognize what seems fair. But the law doesn't do fairness. The law says F your feelings. The law does paperwork. It doesn't matter what someone wanted. It matters what they wrote down. And Jimi, he wrote nothing down. So despite his talent, despite his success, despite all the things he left behind, the one thing he didn't leave was clarity. And because of that, his own brother lost everything. But there is a kind of bright side. In 2015, after decades of legal battles, Janie and Leon Hendrix reached an out-of-court settlement regarding the use of Jimi's name and likeness on merchandise. While the specific terms were kept private, the settlement addressed damages tied to these commercial uses. However, the amount Leon received was just a small fraction of what many felt he should have inherited as Jimi's brother. This resolution was bittersweet for Leon, highlighting the personal and legal struggles of living in the shadow of a world-famous sibling.
This was only a stage act, and as a person, he was very different.
Now, as far as Monica, she did try to make a claim on Jimi's estate. She even claimed that she was the only one who truly knew Jimi and that he confided in her about her wishes before his death, though she was not legally recognized as a partner in estate matters. There were speculations and rumors that she might have been in line for some kind of compensation. However, her legal efforts did not succeed in granting her a piece of Jimi's estate. After Jimi's death, Monica lived in relative obscurity, but remained involved in Hendrix's legacy, even publishing a controversial book about a relationship with him. That was called The Inner World of Jimi Hendrix. Now about Mitch and Noel and Jimi's bandmates, eventually all of them felt some frustration over not being properly compensated for their contributions to Jimi's music and legacy. For example, Mitch Mitchell was famously upset with how the estate was managed after Jimi's death, particularly the fact that the estate was left primarily in the control of his estranged father Al, and then later Janie Hendrix. So if there's one thing to take away from this story, it's this: no matter how famous you are, no matter how much or little you have, get it in writing, because if you don't, the law will decide for you, and you just might not like the outcome, or the people left behind won't like the outcome. Now, on top of that, let me clarify a couple of things. Jimi had more people in his family than most of us know, He actually had other brothers and sisters. Some of them were born with disabilities and stuff like that and were put into foster homes and stuff. And it looks like their parents, Lucille and Al, just didn't really want to take care of them. But even if they were alive, they wouldn't have gotten anything anyway because of what we said in the video. Al would have been the sole benefactor of Jimi Hendrix's estate. I don't want to say that Al didn't really care, but Al was raising them as a single parent. He was doing the alcohol stuff and stuff like that. So he wasn't the greatest of a parent. And when Jimi did get older, he was kind of there, but the relationship was very complicated. There was a little bit of abuse going on and stuff like that. But money talks, because as Jimi began to make his money, of course his dad was going to try to stick his nose in his business a little bit more. The sad thing that it was said that the night that Jimi died, though, his father was more interested in how much Jimi had in the bank than exactly what happened to Jimi. That's crazy. But Janie, man, I see a lot of stories out there on how people feel about her. After looking into the information and understanding the story a lot better, I do say that Janie might just be a little bit greedy here. You know what I mean? I understand what she's trying to do. She's trying to keep it all together under the name of Hendrix. But she is not a Hendrix. She was not a blood relative. It shows that Jimi actually had some kids, even though he never officially acknowledged that he did have children. But it's simply the way that the law worked in Washington State, that as long as the parents are alive, they are the ones that get everything. And his mother was dead, and his father was the only one living, so that's why everything went to him, so nobody else would even matter. There have been numerous lawsuits, and probably will be some in the future. As long as Janie is trying to do what she does, she's going to have people kind of hating on her, you know? Contrary to what Janie has said, trying to make it look like her and Jimi had a real strong relationship, she only met the guy a couple of times, 2 or 3 times on some visits when Jimi came to Seattle or Washington and things like that. She really didn't know this guy, man. She was 9 years old when he died. And Jimi was on the road most of the time when she was being born. But that's how it goes, man. If you don't put that stuff down on paper, write it down, put it in the will and that type of stuff, or tell somebody, shoot a video, tell somebody what you want done with your stuff after you pass away, hey, man, who knows who's going to get it? That might have been a mistake of the century, but that's the way it goes, Jimi. Anyway, guys, I hope you appreciate this kind of stuff. We're going to get back rolling. I'm going to see you guys in the next one on the Music Mindset channel. I'm Mr. Mindset. I always appreciate you guys taking the time out to check out these videos. I hope you learned something. Go ahead and give some comments, because I know y'all got something to say. So go ahead and do it. I'll see you next time.